Over the first 4 days of this year's Tour of Missouri, the racing has been dominated by the sprinters. On day 1 and 2, it was dominated by the king of the Isle of Man, Mark Cavendish, getting a victory on stage 1. And despite the thrills and spills, he came out and got himself a victory on day number 2 as well. But eventually he was dethroned by Thor Hushoff. And finally, nobody cried for Argentina as JJ Haedo got his victory and a new yellow jersey. Sedalia, Missouri today is going to host the 5th stage of the 2009 Tour of Missouri, but it's no ordinary stage at all because today is the individual time trial. It's the day when all of the riders who think that they can win this bike race finally have to come out of the shadows and prove their worth and try and lay down the foundations for a strong individual victory. Hello everybody, I'm Paul Sherwin, alongside me is Frankie Andreu. And today is an important day because it's the day when all of the riders who we haven't seen in the television pictures so far and have been hiding in the main field have to come out and try and lay down those foundations to try and take the stranglehold at the top end of the overall classification. Now, I'm supposed to be somewhat of an expert when it comes to predicting individual time trials, but today I can't really come out with 1 or 2 names because there are so many riders in the Tour of Missouri this year, Frankie, who can ride a good individual time trial and still have a chance of grabbing the overall lead.
Yes, of course, from day 1, everybody has said that the Stage 5 time trial is going to make the difference in the Tour of Missouri. Since the beginning of this race, it's been close. It's been a matter of inches in the field sprints. There's been ties for the yellow jerseys. But today, the 19-mile time trial, it is going to not only be seconds at the finish, there could be minutes. Levi Leipheimer, a very good time trialist. David Zabriskie, the U.S. time trial champion. Panatti, Gustav Erik Larsen. Some riders coming off injury, some riders coming on with good form. All of them with a great chance to do well here today. And, of course, they're thinking if they can win today, they'll be able to take the Tour of Missouri.
Well, to get the riders have had to go through 4 very well-disputed stages. They've had to fight not only for seconds, but also for centimetres throughout the whole of this stage. It's really been, over the first 4 days of this race, a battle of the sprinters. 4 days and 3 different leaders. It all started on day 1 on the streets of St. Louis for a circuit race totaling 75 miles. And despite early attacks, when it came down to the final few kilometres, the whole of the main field were together, including last year's defending champion, Christian van der Velde. But on the charge up to the line, Frankie, it was all about the sprinters.
It became about the sprinters and the pressure was on. Thor Hushoff let it up, but the man with the green glasses, Mark Cavendish, dealing with the pressure, taking the expected win.
But shocked news the next day as the riders lined up from St. Genevieve to go to Cape Girardeau, because on the run-in yesterday there was a crash and Christian van der Velde broke his hand and was unable to continue. But again, victory number 2 going to Mark Cavendish, extending his lead in the overall classification. Day 3, though, was a different story as the riders faced up to a long ride from Farmington to Rolla. 114 miles of racing. With Mark Cavendish in the yellow jersey at the start of the day, on the sprint to the line, things were going to change.
Earlier in the day, there was a break that went away, but Columbia HTC rode on the front all day. The only man left was George Hincapie with Cavendish behind him. The brakes went up both sides of the road, but in the middle, Thor Hushoff with the green jersey takes the victory.
Yes, but he also became the brand new leader of this bike race. Despite being on exactly the same time as Mark Cavendish on countback, he was the leader on points. Moving on to stage number 4, the riders moved away from St. James to go down to the capital city of Jefferson City. 109 miles of racing. Once again, the race dominated in the early part by a long breakaway of 4 riders who built themselves up an advantage of close to 3 minutes. But there was a big charge down to the line, but this time it was a different group of riders on the front end of the main field trying to nail back the breakaways.
It was a combination of Pro Tour teams trying to bring back Mike Creed, Bernard Van Olden, Brad White, and Jeff Loader, but coming in up the Capitol wall, everybody was starting to attack. The teams were setting up for a field sprint. The brakes time up in front was now limited.
But with a last-minute burst there, trying to go off the main field, was Brad White, trying to get himself a little bit of glory. But still, it was pretty much all together as they came into the capital city, and attacks were coming thick and fast on the left and on the right. But it wasn't going to be a day that was stolen away from the sprinters, despite a very dramatic crash well inside the last lap of the circuit.
That was David Zabriskie going around the corner, and there the crash happens. Many of the favorites being taken out, like Sebastian Hayedo. But coming up the wall, there was Thor Hushoff in the yellow jersey. He needed this win, but JJ Hayedo outpowering the God of Thunder to take the win.
And just like it had been on the previous day, two riders going into the top of the overall classification in exactly the same time. But on countback this time, it went to JJ Hayedo. Well, I suppose if we'd been in France, we'd have called that the hors d'oeuvre. But what we're looking at now is the main course, because the main course is going to be the individual time trial. Frankie, it is a very interesting course, but one I think that might suit certain riders rather than others.
Yeah, the course definitely. It's 19 miles. It's flat. It's fast. It's a little bit windy out there, but the riders have said it's completely different than what we've seen in the previous two editions in Branson. The specialists are going to have all of the aerodynamic equipment out there. They're going to be expecting to be able to go as fast as they can because there's nothing to slow them down. It is straight roads, a couple corners, and a mad dash to the finish.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, let's not forget, Dave Zabriskie is the guy who just a couple of weeks ago was the winner of the American National Time Trial Championship, so he has got to be one of our pre-race favorites. But Frankie, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you throw another couple of names in there?
Well, I think David Zabriskie as the U.S. American National Champion is one of the favorites because he's been racing up to this race. Levi Leipheimer is injured coming off the broken wrist from the Tour de France, so he's had some time off, but still, he is a phenomenal time trialist. Gustav Erik Larsen, the silver medalist in the Olympics, should be up there. And I want to throw in a couple domestic names like Tom Zerbel, who always gets up there whenever the big boys show up, a great time trialist, and Scott Zazansky from Kelly Benefits. So a combination of riders, but to pick the winner, that might be a little bit more difficult.
Well, Frankie, not backing on putting down a solid name into the board there. But anyway, we'll take a short break, and when we come back after the break, we will be straight into the action of the individual time trial. Welcome back to the very important individual time trial. 19 miles of racing, 30 kilometers. David Zabriskie here, the American national champion for the last 4 years in a row. Franking, I would have to say, looking rather calm before the storm.
David Zabriskie very easily dealing with the pressure of this race. He stayed hidden. He's been keeping his legs as fresh as possible for this time trial. Le Tour de Missouri, many of the fans having their favorites, and there in the start gate is Chris Baldwin.
Yes, the interesting thing about the individual time trial today, Frank, is apart from the few riders who've gained themselves time bonus sprints before the start of this individual time trial, everybody else is pretty much looking for the same amount of deficit, 26 seconds, as is Tom Zerbel. Now, Tom Zerbel recently was second in the American National Time Trial Championship, so at half distance, I would expect a fairly good ride by this young man. Maybe he can set the early benchmark.
Tom Zerbel will be expected to set one of the early benchmarks. He's done fantastic rides at the Amgen Tour of California. He's able to compete against the Pro Tour riders, but this is the crowd favorite. David Zabriskie out on course wearing that Stars and Stripes National Champions time trial jersey. And again, as we go back to Jersey, the first split time, 12:28, as we wait to see Zabriskie, who's coming up behind him.
Well, that's a very important benchmark that everybody else will be looking at. We're looking here at Dave Zabriskie. He's been the national champion of the United States of America in the individual time trial for the last 4 years in a row. And in fact, if you add it up completely, he's been a national time trial at this discipline, Frankie, on 5 separate occasions. He has to be one of the big favorites on a course which I think actually suits him.
After the Tour, he took a little bit of a favorite, and what everybody talks about with Zabriskie is his aerodynamic position. Levi Leipheimer in the start gate, the winner 3 times of the Amgen Tour of California. He's won the final time trial of the Tour de France before, and of course, all the final time trials of the Amgen Tour of California. He is motivated. Look at the focus on Levi Leipheimer right now.
Look at the arms trembling as Levi Leipheimer comes away from the starting gate. He knows exactly what he has to do to get into this bike race. This is a good ride here by Zerbel, and he's just about to catch his 1 minute man there, the man who started right in front of him on the road, and that is a fairly impressive performance, and that is a big boost for the morale for a rider when you can do something like that. That looks very much to me as if that is Valery Kobzarenko that he's come by straight by him, and he hasn't even been able to catch into the slipstream.
Kobazarenko with no chance to get in the slipstream of Zerbel, but Zabriskie, first split time 11:53, so he has bettered Tom Zerbel. Zabriskie now with the best split time out on course as the riders go past each other. Look at that aerodynamic position. Only once in a while. It's a very flat course, a very fast course. They only have to come out of the aerodynamic handlebars once in a while. You can see David going from one side of the road all the way to the other, trying to keep his momentum as fast as possible.
Well, coming into the finish line now, this is a very good finish now. We're looking here at the face of Zerbel. Now, he is a great individual time trialist. Let's see what he stops the clock at, 37:14. That is a brand new best time, and that, Frankie, is going to be the time to beat. That will be the benchmark for everybody else. Olympic silver medalist in Beijing last year, Gustav Larsson. Now, he is a strong bike rider too, hugely powerful, and on the past he has been a number of occasions the national champion of Sweden in the individual time trial. He will be chasing the fast times set by Dave Zabriskie.
And Gustav Erik Larsson knows this time trial is only 19 miles long, so it's a combination of being a sprint and having the endurance.
Well, it's all about bicycles in this kind of sport now, and a lot of companies invest a lot of time and money into the technology that makes their machines a lot better.
This is the Cannondale Slice bike that Team Liquigas will be racing in the time trial here at the Tour of Missouri. It's also the bike chosen by two-time world champion triathlete Chrissy Wellington, who also is a world record holder by over 5 minutes for fastest bicycle split. The three things we try to do and balance when we set out to design a new aerodynamic time trial bike: lightweight, aerodynamics, and comfort. We have, with the Slice, we've got a full carbon fiber monocoque high modulus carbon fiber frame, which is lightest, one of the lightest on the market. For aerodynamics, we've proven in wind tunnel tests with Ivan Basu of Team Liquigas, as well as our world-class triathletes, that we are best in class aerodynamically. And then the third thing that sets us really apart is we've added, through different shapes and wall thicknesses, to our seat stays and chain stays, an element of comfort in the rear triangle. For a stage racer like Ivan Basu or Franco Pellizotti, it's very important to remain fresh for those time trials. But for a triathlete, it's really important because you come off of the bike feeling really fresh for the run. One of the things Cannondale engineers do when they see an opportunity to improve the performance of our bicycles, sometimes they'll start with a clean slate when designing a bike. It means they won't take just what's available to us from a component standpoint, and they'll actually design the bike around the component and the components with the bikes. This is one example of that. The concept is called system integration. This is the fork from a Cannondale Super 6 that Team Liquigas is riding here at the Tour of Missouri. What we do is we use a tapered steer tube, and what that allows us to do is use thinner walls, oversized tube. It's lighter weight, very stiff. It also allows us to use an oversized bearing on the bottom and a standard bearing on the top. What this does is it gives you a couple of benefits when you're riding the bike. From a steering performance standpoint, it's going to steer where you point it. When you're going around those curves, you're going to have precise steering. It's faster through the curves. When Francesco Chicchi sprints, for example, at the finish line, he's going to be hammering away at the handlebars. His fork's not going to be flexing. He's going to sprint faster. When Franco Pellizzoti's climbing and accelerates up those climbs, he's also going to be putting a lot of force into those handlebars. It's not going to flex. He's going to go faster up those climbs as well.
Well, a lot of companies investing time and money into making their machines more aerodynamic, but frankly, probably the most important thing is to make the body more aerodynamic, and this is one of the most aerodynamic bike riders in the whole of the professional peloton. Second time split, again the best time for Dave Zabriskie there. He's going around this course very fast indeed.
Extremely fast, and David Zabriskie has really put out a lot of effort. The first part of this course is tailwind. The second part is a headwind course. George Hincapie with a split time of 12:16, 29th best. Probably not what he's looking for.
Probably not what George Hincapie is looking for, but he spent a lot of time before this event getting himself ready for the National Road Racing Championships, which he actually took that title 2 weeks ago. So maybe he doesn't have enough top-end speed, but he has, frankly, after all of this, caught the man that started 1 minute ahead of him, and that's Kevin Seldrijs of Quick-Step and of Belgium.
And he's also been on the front doing the lead-outs for Mark Cavendish, of course, Columbia HTC, with 2 stage wins. So, George, a big factor in the development of Mark Cavendish as a sprinter. Next year, he leaves the team for Team B GMC. But right now, George is out on course. Now here we have Zabriskie coming in. He had the 2 fastest splits. Will he have the fastest time coming into the finish?
Well, the time to beat is 37:14, and that was set by Tom Zerbel. This man has set the fastest times all the way around the course so far. He's into the final 150 meters. He's looking at that clock. He's looking to see whether or not he can stop it with the fastest time, and he has. 36 minutes and 30 seconds. New best time. Massive big benchmark. Everybody's going to hope that they can try and better that time. But Frankie, in the individual time trial, the rules say that you are not allowed to ride in the slipstream or draft behind a rider once you've been caught, and that, I think, is why this referee is a little bit annoyed here.
He's telling Kevin Sidleres to get off of George Hincapie, and Kevin's like, all right, I'm not going to be behind George. I'm going to come behind the motorcycle, defying the rules of the commissars. Now, Levi Leipheimer coming into the finish. Let's see what kind of time he has finishing in third place, 37:39, a bit off the place of David Zabriskie.
Well, I don't think Levi will be too happy with that performance. Last man to start, the man who grabbed the yellow jersey off the shoulders of Thor Hushoff yesterday from Argentina and, of course, from Team Saxo Bank, JJ Haedo. Coming into the finishing line now. This is a big burst to the line, and this looks like Gustav Larsson, who stops the clock, and that's second best time for him, 37 minutes almost flat, losing 30 seconds completely to Dave Zabriskie. That is a huge beating. Well, JJ Haedo, I'm not surprised there, Frankie, just scraping inside the top 100 riders at the time checks, but he's a sprinter, isn't he? He's not really expected to do well in a stage like this.
No, JJ Haedo, of course, a sprinter. He has the yellow jersey on his back. The first time for him to wear the yellow jersey in a stage race. Here comes George Hincapie to the finish, but amazing ride by David Zabriskie. 30 seconds over Gustav Larsson and 44 seconds over Zerbel as George Hincapie comes in 25th best at 38:47. Now, JJ Haedo coming into the finish. He's not going to take the win here. He's trying to come to the line, but the points jersey is on the line.
It certainly is on the line, and that's a competition I think that we've battled out right the way down to the finish in Kansas City. But it's not really important, is it, for JJ Haedo time at all in a situation like this, Frankie? All he wants to do is get this stage under his belt.
All he wants to do is get this stage under his belt, because Saxo Bank is going to be thinking about the next 2 stages and possibly how to get David Zabriskie out of the yellow jersey. Haedo finishing 97th best, but David Zabriskie flying around this course over 31 miles per hour.
Yes, and a 30-second beating of the Olympic silver medalist Gustav Larsson. Tom Zerbel, a great ride by him in third place, and that's what the overall classification looks like now. Completely and utterly changed. We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to the new leader of this bike race, David Zabriskie. Welcome back to Sedalia, and the race of truth is what we normally describe the individual time trial as, and today it certainly once again lived up to its reputation. The men that have been shadow boxing in the main field over the last couple of days had to come out and play for the first time and show us why they're regarded as the fastest men against the clock in the sport. And of course, one man we've been talking about an awful lot since the very first day as hiding in the main field, waiting for this major rendezvous, was of course Dave Zabriskie. Double-edged sword. He not only took himself the overall stage today, but he also grasped the yellow jersey. Dave, great individual time trial today, and very difficult, I would say, to ride for 4 days in a pack, waiting and knowing that you've got to come out on day 5 in an individual time trial and ride a big time like you did today.
Yeah, so far the race hasn't been all that aggressive, with Columbia controlling the first couple stages, so it hasn't been that hard to stay hidden in the pack. So I was pretty fresh for today.
But a lot of guys have been in the same situation. We've talked as well about Michael Rogers. We've talked about the possibility of Hincapie and Levi Leipheimer. But it's difficult, I think, towards the end of the year to have the form. You know, you ride the Tour de France, you ride all of the races in the early part of the season, yet you have to come out at the end of the year and ride the American National Championships, which you won a couple of weeks ago, and then still keep the form for the individual time trial for an event like today. It's a lot of pressure on the shoulders of a guy like you.
Yeah, it's definitely been a long season. It's the first time I've done 2 consecutive Grand Tours, and it was hard for me to get my motivation back up for this kind of things, but I definitely wanted to defend in the national championship, so I did that, and I think my form's carried over a little bit into this, and it's also the team put a little pressure on me because Garmin's our big sponsor, and it's important for us to do well here.
Obviously, a team putting a little bit of pressure on you, but how much pressure do you put on yourself? And what does it feel like now? You have the yellow jersey here at the Tour of Missouri. You just did an incredible time trial, and you have the potential to be able to win the Tour of Missouri. How important would that be for you?
That would be huge. It would be huge for me. I don't think I've ever won a stage race, and it would be huge for the team, and yeah, I would be happy.
Are you surprised you had at the U.S. National Championships, you did a fantastic ride, the confidence at an all-time high coming into this race, maybe more so than any time earlier in the year?
Yeah, I'd say so. I was pretty confident in California, but that was a long time ago.
You've already forget about that.
Yeah, so now winning nationals definitely gave me some confidence coming here.
A little bit of sadness as well in this event, because you came into the tour here in Missouri with a two-pronged attack with your mate and your teammate Christian Vande Velde, who was the defending champion from last year. Is that going to have an effect on the way the team rides out over the next couple of days? Because having a guy like Christian Vande Velde alongside would have been a strong ally.
Yeah, the experience that he brings to the team was just phenomenal, and to have him gone is a big. It sucks, man. But there's not much we can do. He broke his hand, and you can't hold the handlebars with that. But he can give us advice at night on the phone and things like that. But the rest of the guys are real motivated. They're feeling strong, and I think everyone wants to defend this jersey.
Well, just to put your performance into a little bit of perspective there as well, the man that you beat into second place today was in fact the silver medalist at the Olympic Games back in Beijing last year, Gustav Larsen. Are you surprised at beating him by a good 30 seconds? And that's actually quite a good buffer over the next couple of days.
Yeah, not surprised. I mean, yeah, a little bit surprised. He's a really good time trialist, but I'm just in really good shape right now, so I'm happy for the result.
Well, congratulations. Great ride today by Dave Zabriskie, and an important ride too to put him right at the top end now of the overall classification by 30 seconds over that man from Sweden and Gustav Larsen, and of course almost 45 seconds ahead of Tom Zerbel. Tomorrow's another day here at the Tour of Missouri, because the riders there will move away from Chillicothe for a 110-mile ride to St. Joseph, and we'll see a different coloured jersey on the front end of the main field, because it'll be the Garmin Slipstream team controlling the front end of affairs. So on behalf of today's winner and the new overall leader of the Tour of Missouri, Dave Zabriskie, and Frankie Andrea, I'm saying good evening for now. Paul Sherwin saying we'll be back tomorrow.